Floating topic bubbles.
Grammar, fluency, speaking, listening.
Hey English learners! Welcome back to Speak English with Learn, your favorite place to grow your English through real, relaxed, everyday conversations. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Liam. And before we get into today's topic properly, Sophie has already said something that I completely disagree with.
Disagree? Already? We haven't even started.
And yet here we are.
I said confidence is basically just about looking calm, and I think that's only about 10% of the actual story.
Right, because the other 90% is what?
Honestly, a feeling, a kind of energy, something you can't always explain but you definitely notice.
Okay, so you're saying confidence is a vibe.
I am absolutely saying confidence is a vibe. I said it, I stand by it.
Great. So today's episode, everyone, we are officially discussing vibes.
Specifically, the vibe of confidence and why it sometimes feels more attractive than physical beauty itself.
Which sounds like a provocative statement.
It does. That's intentional.
Very intentional. All right. Today we are asking a question that is simple on the surface, but actually says a lot about human nature. Is confidence more attractive than beauty?
And we are not asking this in a shallow way. We are really looking at what holds attention after the first impression fades. What makes someone memorable? What makes someone magnetic?
And also, what makes someone unintentionally ruin a great impression in one conversation?
Also very important, we will get there.
This episode is B2 level, so you will hear slightly longer ideas, more natural phrasing, and some really useful vocabulary around confidence, attraction, and first impressions.
But don't stress if you don't catch every single word. You really don't need to understand 100% to enjoy the conversation and learn from it.
Just follow the meaning, follow the emotions, and let the English come to you naturally.
And later in the episode, we will slow things down and do our word tour, where we go through the most useful words, idioms, and phrasal verbs from today's conversation.
So by the end, you will have real vocabulary to talk about confidence and attraction. Not just, I don't know, they just have something.
Although that sentence is still doing a lot of work in real life.
All right, let's begin. Okay, Sophie, real talk. In real life, what do you think lasts longer? Beauty or confidence?
Right, so beauty gets attention faster, but confidence lasts longer. That is honestly where I land on this.
Say more about that.
Well, beauty can make people look at you immediately, in 1 second, maybe less. But confidence is what makes people keep looking without them even realizing they're still looking.
Yes, that's such a good way to put it. Because beauty can absolutely turn heads.
Right, and if something turns heads, it means it gets immediate attention. People notice it straight away.
And let's not pretend that isn't real, because it is. We are human. We notice a beautiful face. We notice style. We notice how someone enters a room. That first reaction is normal and natural.
Completely. I think some people try too hard to sound deep by saying beauty doesn't matter at all, but the first glance does have power.
It does. A great first impression can win a lot in 1 second.
But it can't carry a whole conversation.
No. At some point, the face needs help from the personality.
Exactly, and that's where it gets interesting, because after the first glance, attraction starts changing shape. It becomes less about what you're looking at and more about what you're feeling around that person.
Which brings us to something that I think matters even more than looks after those first few seconds.
Presence.
Yes, presence. The feeling or impact a person has when they're around you. Not just what they look like, what it actually feels like to be near them.
And that's why two people can be equally attractive, but one of them stays in your mind and the other one just disappears.
One catches the eye, the other stays in the memory.
I remember something like this very clearly. A few years ago, I was at a friend's birthday dinner and there was this guy who walked in, and honestly, half the table noticed him immediately. Very good looking, very polished.
Mm-hmm.
But later, I ended up talking to him for a while, and the whole feeling just faded. Not because he was rude, nothing dramatic happened. The conversation was just flat. You know that feeling when someone looks like they belong in a film, but the actual conversation feels like dry bread?
Dry bread. That is a very specific and very cruel image.
But you understand it, right?
I completely understand it. Beautiful face, dry bread energy.
Exactly.
And the opposite happened too?
Yes, later that same evening, I started talking to someone else. Much less striking at first, but the moment they started speaking, everything changed around him. He laughed easily. He was genuinely curious about what other people had to say. He made people feel noticed, and suddenly, the one everyone kept gravitating toward.
Yes, because beauty can open the door, but it doesn't always know how to stay in the room. Confidence does.
Perfectly said.
And honestly, I think English learners feel this too. A lot of learners believe their English has to sound perfect before they can make a good impression. But what actually stays with people is not perfection. It's calmness. It's willingness. It's the confidence to stay in the conversation even when it's imperfect.
Yes, a small mistake almost never ruins a conversation, but panic can ruin it very fast.
One wrong tense is totally survivable. Looking like your soul has quietly left your body is slightly harder to hide.
That is painfully accurate.
So the first truth is, beauty might win the first few seconds, but confidence often wins everything after. Now, what does real confidence actually look like?
Great question, because a lot of confidence is visible before it's verbal.
Exactly. You notice it before someone has said anything important. You see it in how they stand, how they pause, how they look at people without rushing or shrinking.
You see it in whether they seem comfortable being seen.
Yes, and that calm, balanced quality has a beautiful word for it.
Poise.
Right. Poise means calm, controlled confidence. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it just feels steady.
And poise is so attractive because it's like still water. It doesn't need to splash everywhere to prove that it's there.
That is genuinely beautiful.
Thank you, I prepared that line.
I can tell. But it's true. Real confidence is often quieter than people expect. It's not always in the loudest person in the room. Sometimes it's in the most grounded one.
Yes, and when someone seems naturally balanced like that, people say they carry themselves well.
Right. To carry yourself well means to present yourself with confidence and balance through the way you stand, move, and speak.
I noticed this once in a coffee shop. There was a man standing in line. Very ordinary clothes, nothing flashy at all, but he was completely calm. He spoke slowly to the barista. He smiled like he had absolutely nowhere else to be. And somehow he stood out more than anyone else in that room.
That's so interesting.
Because he looked fully at ease in himself, Not trying to impress anyone, just settled. And that calmness made everyone else feel less rushed too.
Confidence can do that. It can actually lower the emotional temperature of an entire room.
Which is so useful in modern life, where everyone already looks like they're late for 3 things and stressed about 4 more.
Very accurate.
And this matters for English learners too. Even when your vocabulary is still developing, your body language is already speaking for you.
Absolutely. You might still be searching for the right word, but if you keep eye contact, breathe steadily, smile, and don't collapse into constant apology, people already experience you differently.
Yes, your English can genuinely be fine while your shoulders are giving a completely separate speech called "Please forgive me for being here."
Oh no, that's too real.
You know it is.
So yes, confidence speaks long before the perfect sentence arrives. But there's another layer here too, because beauty can impress people and still lose its power if insecurity starts showing underneath.
Yes, and this is where it gets a little more tender.
It does. Because someone can be very beautiful and still not feel safe inside themselves.
And when a person grows more secure in who they are, they become what we would call self-assured.
Right. Self-assured means secure in yourself. You trust who you are. You don't need constant approval or reassurance to feel okay.
And that energy is deeply attractive because it feels peaceful. There's something genuinely beautiful about a person who is not fighting themselves every moment.
Not fighting themselves. That's such a good way to say it.
Meanwhile, someone can look incredible and still seem deeply insecure.
Right. Insecure means not feeling confident or stable in yourself. You keep doubting yourself, needing reassurance, or feeling like you're not quite enough.
And people feel that energy, even when they can't explain it clearly. The beauty is there, but something feels tight, guarded, almost apologetic.
I knew someone like that once. She was genuinely stunning. The kind of person people would stop and look at twice. But every compliment made her uncomfortable. Every social situation made her nervous. Every conversation felt like she was quietly bracing for rejection. And after a while, you stopped seeing the beauty first. You started feeling the sadness first.
That is really powerful.
It stayed with me because I remember thinking, beauty can decorate the outside, but it cannot calm the inside. Only self-acceptance can do that. Only real healing.
And that's why confidence feels so hopeful. Because beauty is something people often treat like it's either given to you or it isn't. But confidence is something people can build.
Yes, and that's such an important message for English learners especially. So many people think, I'll speak confidently when my English is perfect. But actually, the opposite is usually true. Your English gets stronger because you allow yourself to speak before you feel fully ready.
Right. Confidence doesn't arrive in a little gold box after lesson number 300.
Sadly, no.
Very rude of life.
Very rude.
But it does grow, slowly, quietly, through awkward conversations, small risks, tiny wins, and those moments where you think, oh, I handled that a little better than last time.
And that's where confidence becomes beautiful in its own right. Because it's been built. It has cost something. It has a real story inside it.
Which brings us to something really important. Because once people hear all this, they sometimes get nervous and think, but what if confidence tips into arrogance?
And those two are really not the same thing at all.
Not even close. A confident person usually makes people feel more comfortable. An arrogant person often gives off something heavy.
Right. To give off means to create or send out a certain feeling or impression.
Exactly. Confidence gives off calmness, steadiness, and self respect. Arrogance usually gives off superiority, tension, the feeling that someone is working very hard to prove something.
Yes, real confidence doesn't need to push itself into the room. It's just there. It feels settled. Arrogance feels hungry.
Arrogance feels hungry. I love that.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, arrogance enters the room like it has already written its own award speech.
And practiced it in the mirror.
Several times.
With dramatic lighting.
Of course.
But what's interesting is that truly confident people often have quiet charisma.
Right. Charisma means a natural charm that draws people toward you.
And that charm isn't loudness. It isn't ego. It isn't showing off. Most of the time, it's warmth, ease, humor, calmness, the feeling that someone is fully themselves and doesn't need to perform.
Yes, the most charismatic people are often the ones who make other people feel more relaxed, not more intimidated.
And this matters so much for English learners. Some learners hold back because they're afraid that speaking more confidently will make them seem arrogant.
But speaking clearly is not arrogance. Participating is not arrogance. Taking your place in the conversation is not arrogance.
Arrogance is pretending you know everything. Confidence is simply saying, I belong here too,
That is such an important line.
especially for everyone who begins every sentence with, sorry, my English is bad, even when their English is actually doing just fine.
Yes, sometimes the apology is working harder than the actual English.
Sadly true.
So, real confidence feels respectful. It has room for other people. And once confidence becomes that healthy, something genuinely beautiful happens. It changes not only how you appear, but how people actually experience you.
Yes, and I think this is the deepest part of the whole conversation. Confidence changes the emotional atmosphere around a person.
Exactly. Some people don't just look attractive, they somehow make the whole room feel lighter.
They make people breathe more easily, laugh more freely, speak more honestly.
And sometimes that kind of person can really stand out without even trying to.
Right. To stand out means to be more noticeable than others in a strong or positive way.
And the interesting thing is, they usually don't stand out because they're demanding attention. They stand out because their energy feels clear, warm, and settled.
I met someone once who was like that. Very ordinary appearance, simple clothes, nothing flashy at all. But after about 10 minutes with them, everyone around them looked lighter. People were laughing more, opening up more, relaxing more.
That's such a beautiful thing to notice.
Yes, because they weren't trying to impress anyone. They just had this calm, open way of being that made everyone else feel safe to be more open too.
And that is exactly why some people feel almost magnetic.
Right. Magnetic means so attractive or compelling that people feel naturally drawn to you.
And that to me is where confidence becomes more powerful than appearance. It changes comfort, trust, curiosity, connection all at once.
Yes, beauty may catch the eye, but confidence changes the whole experience. It changes how long people want to stay, how deeply they want to listen, how safe they feel being real around you.
And honestly, that's true for English learners too. When speak with a little more ease and self-trust, people don't only hear your words differently, they feel differently around you too.
They relax more. You relax more. The whole conversation becomes warmer, softer, more human.
Which is great because searching for vocabulary is already enough effort for one conversation.
Exactly.
We do not need panic as a second language as well.
No, thank you very much.
So, in the end, I think the answer becomes clear. Beauty matters, yes, but confidence reaches much further.
Yes. So if I had to answer the question very simply, I'd say beauty may open the door, but confidence is often what makes people want to stay.
That is a very strong answer.
Thank you. I prepared at least one intelligent line today.
At least one, yes.
All right, everyone, before we finish, let's slow things down and move into our word tour. We use some really useful words and phrases in today's conversation. So let's go through them together in a calm and simple way.
And as always, listen first, then repeat with us.
Let's start with our first phrase. Turn heads.
If something or someone turns heads, it means they attract immediate attention. People notice them straight away.
For example, she turned heads the moment she walked into the room.
Or, beauty can turn heads quickly, but confidence often leaves the deeper impression.
Repeat. Turn heads.
Turn heads. Next, a very important word, presence.
Presence is the feeling or impact a person has when they are around others. It's not only about how they look, it's about how they feel to be around.
For example, she has a calm presence that makes everyone comfortable.
Or, confidence often gives a person a stronger presence. Repeat. Presence.
Presence. Next, the word poise.
Poise means calm, controlled confidence. A person with poise doesn't seem rushed, nervous, or out of balance.
For example, he answered the difficult question with real poise.
Or, poise can make someone more memorable than perfect looks. Repeat. Poise.
Poise. Next, a very natural phrase. Carry yourself well.
If you carry yourself well, you present yourself in a confident and balanced way through your posture, your movement, and your behavior.
For example, she isn't loud, but she carries herself really well.
Or, people notice immediately when someone carries themselves well. Repeat. Carry yourself well.
Carry yourself well. Next, the word self-assured.
If someone is self-assured, they feel secure in who they are. They trust themselves and don't constantly look for approval.
So, for example, he sounded self-assured without sounding arrogant.
Or, a self-assured person often becomes more attractive over time. Repeat. Self-assured.
Self-assured. Now, the opposite word, insecure.
If someone feels insecure, they don't feel fully confident or stable in themselves. They may doubt themselves a lot or worry about how others see them.
For example, he looked confident at first, but later seemed quite insecure.
Or, even beauty can lose its effect when insecurity becomes visible. Repeat. Insecure.
Insecure. Next, a phrasal verb we use today, Stand out.
To stand out means to be more noticeable than others in a strong or positive way.
For example, her confidence helped her stand out in the interview.
Or, in many situations, confidence makes you stand out more than appearance. Repeat. Stand out.
Stand out. Next, another very useful phrasal verb. Give off.
To give off means to create or send out a certain feeling, energy, or impression.
For example, he gives off a very calm and grounded energy.
Or, arrogance gives off a very different feeling from real confidence. Repeat. Give off.
Give off. Next, a strong word. Charisma.
Charisma means a natural charm that attracts people and makes them interested in you.
For example, she doesn't try too hard, but she has real charisma.
Or, charisma often comes from confidence, warmth, and ease. Repeat. Charisma.
Charisma. And finally, one of our favorite words from today, magnetic.
If someone is magnetic, they're so attractive or compelling that people feel naturally drawn toward them.
For example, there was something magnetic about the way she spoke.
Or, confidence can make a person feel magnetic even without perfect looks. Repeat. Magnetic.
Magnetic. And that's our word tour for today.
So next time you want to talk about confidence, attraction, or first impressions, you'll have much better language to express exactly what you mean.
And more importantly, you'll recognize these words instantly when you hear them in real conversations.
Exactly. Because learning English isn't only about collecting words. It's about learning how people really think, speak, and connect.
And today's topic reminds us of that beautifully. Attraction isn't always about what shines first. Very often, it's about what feels real, steady, human after the first impression fades.
Beauty may catch attention for a moment, but confidence often leaves the deeper mark because it changes the way people actually experience you.
And the nicest part of this whole conversation? Confidence isn't something only a few lucky people are born with. It's something people can grow, slowly, quietly, through practice and self-acceptance.
Which means this isn't just a conversation about attraction. It's a conversation about self-trust.
About becoming someone who doesn't need to force attention, because their calmness, presence, and self-respect already.
And honestly, that kind of confidence is beautiful in its own way.
It really is.
Take good care of your English, everyone.
And take good care of your heart. This of Sophie.
And this is Liam.
And you've been listening to Speak English with Learn. See you in the next episode.